Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Combat Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. So, kind of want to go over a story today about one of my personal feelings and how it's evolved as I've started to run a school on a day-to-day basis. You know, I really take training with certain people very seriously. Right. So, you know, like most of you know, I started with Hickson in 1989. I moved to California, and I moved specifically to Torrance, California, so I could train over at the Gracie Academy. So I trained with Horian for a tiny bit, and then Horian, Fabio Santos, and then who was there? Fabio was at the academy at the time, and then I moved over to Hickson's academy. And when I realized he was no longer at the Gracie Academy, so then I went to his school and I trained under him. You know, I know I was lucky to join up and train jiu-jitsu at that time because of the fact that Elio's sons were pretty much the only teachers at that time in the US. I say pretty much because by the time I moved up to California, I want to say Fabio had come down from Utah shortly after I got there. But I think Pedro Sauer might have been up there around that time, if not maybe a little before, I'm not quite sure. I think he taught in the garage originally, so I think he was already up at Utah teaching. And then you had Joe Morera in Orange County. You had Hickson Gracie, who's Rodrigo Gracie's father. I think he was also down in Orange County as well. And the Machados, right? The Machados, they started off teaching in Horian's garage. They stayed after the Gracie Academy opened. So that was really it. You know, there weren't that many people teaching. You know, at that time, you know, learning from them is learning as close to the source as you could possibly get. I mean, you can't get any closer than Elio's sons, other than Elio Gracie himself. But, you know, that wasn't going to happen. You know, so you learn certain concepts, and as jiu-jitsu gets further away from the source, and that's why lineage sometimes is a great indicator of what you're going to expect or what you can expect from your instructor. Not always though, but it's a good way to figure it out. But what happened was, as you get further away from the source, then people start to want to input their own things into jiu-jitsu, right? The reason why I took jiu-jitsu, the reason why I teach it, the reason why Dave teaches it is, in fact, everybody at Combat Jiu-Jitsu, we teach it because we want it to be just like what we learned, right? We're not trying to make it better. We're trying to take what we have and teach that to people. You can have better situations where you have somebody who's an incredible athlete, or they're incredibly flexible or incredibly strong, and you can kind of work it, and then you can make it so they as an individual will be able to go up to a higher level. But I believe that the art is relatively complete the way it came to me, and that I'm not smart enough or good enough to try to make it better. Now, where I think I excel personally is in the teaching of it. Because, you know, here at Combat Jiu-Jitsu, we do have a methodology of teaching Jiu-Jitsu that I think is about as good or better than I've ever seen. And I think I've seen a lot. And I'm not trying to brag on it. I'm just saying that I've seen a lot. And based on just my whole thinking, I think it's easier to, and based on our teachers, on our students as well, I think that we've got a pretty good system. But we're not teaching anything different. We just do it in a little different way. And, you know, if you look at Gracie Torrance, right, you see those videos that Hiron and Henner do. They've got some pretty good innovations as well on how they teach things. And I think it's actually better than the way their father was teaching. But, you know, they're still teaching the jiu-jitsu that they learned. You know, they learn some stuff here and there and kind of add it in, but still they go back to what they teach. They don't try to add anything to the art, really, or try to change certain things. Now, granted, as time goes on, you can find something just isn't effective. Or sometimes, look, if it's not effective, perhaps you're doing it wrong. Simple as that, right? A lot of people, for instance, with the UPA escape, they learn it in white belt, but they never do it after white belt. Why? Because they think it doesn't work. Well, no, it doesn't work because you don't quite know it. And I learned this while I was either late brown or yeah, it was late brown belt, I learned that how I thought the upa escape was supposed to be done wasn't quite right. And here I am thinking that I know how to do it, but I didn't do it all that much because to me it didn't work. I mean, I could make it work under certain circumstances, but what happened was Dave kind of showed me, no, you got to kind of move your head here, you got to move your body this way, put your weight there, and then it works. Okay, right? So I look at it as, okay, that's another thing I need to learn. But now that I know it, I've been doing it for a number of years now, I take that kind of stuff for granted. And now when I, not now, it was before, I don't do it anymore, but I'd go to certain places and I'd kind of be like, and I heard that Hickson was like it too, and Hickson doesn't do it anymore as well, because you once realize what the reality is. So one of the whole things with Hickson and his creation of the JJGF was because the reality is that Jiu-Jitsu became a different art and different from what he believes it should be. And I'm on the same page as him because I was once his student and Dave is his student. What we found is that certain things, certain aspects of Jiu-Jitsu, people don't know anymore, right? Basic things like how to get out of a headlock, right? You know, they might have one or two ways, but, you know, for instance, like a kesa gatame, they call it a scarf hold in judo, but basically it's a headlock on the ground. And a lot of people have no idea how to get out of it. I'd see that and I'd go, in my mind, I'd be thinking, really? You don't know how to get out of that? And I'm thinking to myself, that's like basic. You know, white belts need to know that. Or like with a correct upa escape, you don't know how to do it and you're a black belt? Okay, well, let me show you. Or even with a choke, right? How to choke somebody. Just basic things, because the art has changed, and I think a lot of it has to do with the rule book for the various competitive organizations, right? You make this illegal, you make that illegal, then what happens is it means that you're gonna spend more time doing a certain thing. Judo, for instance, for some curious reason, they got rid of leg attacks. So you can't shoot a double on somebody in judo. You can't do a fireman's carry in judo. And those are throws that are part of the curriculum, right? But because of the rule book, and I think it was probably judo trying to cater to a certain crowd more than another crowd, which led them to that particular rule. But what it does, it ends up taking away a lot of the art and making everybody concentrate on a smaller portion of the art. And the same thing I think happens with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. When you only concentrate on the ground stuff, you never learn how to take somebody down. So then what do you have to do? You have to go and supplement that with wrestling. You have to learn how to wrestle now, so that you can just try to take somebody down, right? You don't have base anymore, so maybe you start to take judo so you can learn how to do base, right? You know, things like that. So what would get me, and I found out later on that Hickson was the same thing, was that incredulity where you don't know that? You don't know that either? And yet you see people going through the belts. Dave and I had a discussion. There's an old video that we did probably about a year and a half ago. We're sitting on a couch and we're kind of discussing the whole thing about belts. And that's where that conversation came from. Now, here's a story about Hickson that I heard from somebody who was there. It was a seminar. I'm not going to say where it was, but there were a lot of black belts there, as there usually are with Hickson seminars. Probably about a third of the people there were black belts and the rest were, you know, other belts. But they had been asking Hickson, you know, Hickson, can you show us this particular, you know, concept that I hear about? You know, probably was a connection or probably, you know, some kind of base thing or whatever. You know, it was something that might have been on the more advanced side, and they wanted to learn it. So Hickson goes, okay, I can teach you that. But, and he goes, please, you know, calls up a black belt, you know, has a black belt come up and says, okay, I need you to do this first. Well, it was, let's say it's 3 steps back from that concept that people were wanting to learn. And that person couldn't do it. So he's like this, okay. All right, so let's try this. So, you know, he's trying to now teach that person that first concept. Person's having a hard time learning that first concept. It's not something that person learned. And this person, black belt. And, you know, can't do it. Okay. So he now has to teach that person a concept he wasn't intending to teach. So now he has to re-gear his mind to teach this concept that he assumed this black belt already knew. Finally, out of frustration, he just looks at this person and goes, who gave you your black belt? Can you imagine? You're the one that's, and other black belts were like, ooh, you know, now nobody kind of wants to go up because they don't want to look stupid like that, right? And the person who gave this person that black belt was a very, very prominent family member. Just gonna leave it at that. So, and having gone to a recent seminar Hickson does, and Dave's told me that he's changed his teaching style. This one I'm thinking about was probably about 6 years ago. It was a while ago, before the JJGF. And I think this is probably one of those events that formed his opinion that Jiu-Jitsu has changed and that he needs to now work double time to try to get it fixed, if it needs fixing. Some people don't believe it does, but he does. So I would come to that conclusion as well, where certain basic things, I would go at a seminar, I teach a class or whatever, and I pull somebody out of the group who should know it, and sure enough, they don't know it. And same thing with Dave. Dave does the same thing. I know Jack does the same thing as well. Now it's gotten to the point where instead of it being me being surprised and a little disappointed and how can this be, now it's, okay, I've got some work to do. Let's back up and let's teach this, right? Because I want everybody to know this stuff, right? I'm doing my best, right? I wouldn't be running a school and running Kama Jiu-Jitsu on my end in Texas and keeping up with weekly calls with Dave to make sure we're all on the same page in California and putting these videos up and having Dave do all these Patreon videos. You know, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't really believe that we needed to spread the art. We wouldn't be setting up a camp in Hawaii. You know, we just go on our own and just train, right? But people do need to learn this stuff, and we want to take every opportunity we can to teach you. I've personally made that transition. Dave did it a long time ago. Hickson did it a few years ago, and just realized, you know what? For everybody that we want to teach, we're going to teach, right? And we're going to help. For those of you who are looking to learn at least the stuff that Hickson teaches, the concept that Hickson teaches, you know, find us. You know, come into our school, come and train. You know, I've had a few people come in from out of town and drop in. I had a particular individual from Hawaii that happened to be in our business, and he came in and trained. I had another guy coming from New York, sought us out, came and trained. And you know, it happens all the time, and it's good. I'm happy to share what we do. If I can have you leave with just one added thing that we do all the time, but that helps you, then for me it's worth it. Try and seek this stuff out, because really the way I see Jiu-Jitsu today is it's being lost. It's becoming another art, which isn't a bad thing. It's just becoming another art. If you wanted to learn traditional stuff is quickly going by the wayside. So, you know, get in touch with us. I'd be happy to help you where I can, as with Dave. And if you see a Hickson seminar coming up, go attend it. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but the concepts that he goes over, as basic as they are, almost everybody who's there doesn't know it. And it's stuff that you need to know, right? Need to know versus good to know. This is need to know stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hit the bell on there so you can get notifications of what's coming. Subscribe to our Patreon page where you get a lot of techniques and stuff. And we're still growing that database. How many videos do we have on there now?
Depends on the tier, but I think we broke 120, over 120 between black belt and purple brown.
So we have 2 tiers where you can see those videos. For the lower tiers, you know, it's basically you get early access to YouTube, to the YouTube videos, or you get the unedited version. Sometimes Rusty likes to do that. But you know, the purple brown and the black belt tiers, they get access to the actual technical videos. Black belts get access to everything, and then the others get access to most. So anyway, so go and check out the channel. You won't regret it. You'll learn a lot of good stuff on there. Stuff that you can definitely use to improve your game. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye-bye now.
Listen to me, hear me. You can't stop chasing your dream just because somebody in your life won't chase it with you. You can't stop believing in yourself just because somebody in your life won't believe in you. You can't stop chasing the dreams of your life just because when you do it, you're going to have to do it all by yourself.